animals are nothing but, they are nothing but the symbiotic association of the polyps as well as zooxanthellae. So there would be two organisms called polyps, coral polyps plus zooxanthellae. So these zooxanthellae and coral, they will live in a kind of symbiotic association. So usually zooxanthellae will give the color to the coral reefs or coral polyps. So when under the unfavorable conditions, what will happen? The corals will expel the zooxanthellae. So when they expel the zooxanthellae, the coloring compounds would be left out. So they will remain, simply polyps will remain. So thus there would be like pale or whitish coloration of these coral reefs or corals. So thus that kind of effect is nothing but coral bleaching. Okay, so that pale appearance of coral polyps is nothing but coral bleaching. So that is how. So how and why this will happen means here acidity of the ocean, it is getting increased. So acidity of the ocean as it is getting increased, so this is detrimental to corals. So that's how this unfavorable condition will lead to coral bleaching. So that is one thing. And then what other things may be, what other effects may be? Yes. In some cases, there can be damage to the life of aquatic organisms or death. In extreme situations, there can be death also. Okay. So then, apart from this, what may happen? Usually, it reduces the metabolic rate. Metabolic rate of the organisms will get reduced, and immune system or immunity also will get reduced. So that is another important effect. And then apart from this, when we talk from the perspective of the oceans, so there are so many aquatic organisms like, let's say, corals or like oysters, all those things. So for all of them, there we will have the process of calcification. So the exoskeleton of each organism would be made up of calcium carbonate. So due to ocean acidification, what will happen? The process of calcification of exoskeleton will hamper. Calcification of the marine animals, like it can be corals, it can be oysters, or it can be mussels. So all of them, in all of those animals, calcification process would be disturbed. So that is one thing. And then apart from this, like we can also witness disruption with respect to food chains and food webs of the oceans. Yes. Calcification. So calcification means like the exoskeletons of the various organisms would be made up of calcium carbonate. So CaCO3, it is nothing but calcium carbonate. So calcium carbonate, it hardens the exoskeleton of various aquatic organisms. So that process of strengthening or that process of deposition of calcium carbonate on the exoskeletons is nothing but calcification. That is addition of calcium, in simple way to say, like calcium would be deposited likewise. So that is calcification. So here what is happening now, CaCO3 will be responsible for the exoskeletons. Now can you observe in the ocean acidification what is happening? The H2CO3 is getting formed. So here, instead of calcifying, so usually what will happen? This process will accentuate. Formation of carbonic acid will accentuate. So due to this, instead of calcium carbonate, there would be carbonic acid formation will happen. So thus, this would be replaced by this, and thus calcification process of the exoskeletons would be destroyed, or it would be hampered. So that is one thing. So then, apart from this, like there would be disruption with respect to food chains and food webs. Food chains, they would be disrupted. How and why they would be disrupted? So usually what may happen sometimes, the ocean acidification largely impacts the phytoplanktons due to increased acidity of the oceans. Phytoplanktons are the first organisms that will be affected by this process. So when we talk from the perspective of phytoplanktons, when phytoplanktons are affected, their production is hampered. So obviously, so in food chain, phytoplanktons would be fed by zooplanktons, and zooplanktons would be fed by, they will feed, they will fed by some small fishes, and small fishes will fed by large fishes. So this kind of sequence of what eats what in an ecosystem is nothing but food chain. So here, when phytoplankton production has been affected, so then what about the zooplanktons? Then what about the small fishes? Then what about food for large fishes? So due to this, yes, 1 minute. So due to this, what will happen? There would be disruption in the food chain. So that is one thing. And in an ecosystem, there would be several interrelated food chains. So once this food chain is affected or impacted, obviously several interrelated food chains may also be disrupted or affected. So thus it causes disruption with respect to food webs and food chains. So that is one another likely effect. Yes, please go on. Yes, yes. Examples of phytoplanktons and algae. Algae is a phytoplankton. Okay. Zooplankton, you can have any other animal which feeds on any other organism which feeds on like a dinoflagellate is one algae. So in last class we have said Carenia brevis. It's also dinoflagellate and it's also a kind of phytoplankton. Okay. So diatoms also can be a type of phytoplanktons. Okay, we can have likewise. So just simply just Google it, you will get further examples. Yes. Due to increased acidity. Acid. See, you have observed that what will happen, like acidity and basicness and acidity would be there, alkalinity. So in acidic conditions, like for example, decomposition or such process will reduce. Why means some conditions will favor for some conditions will favor in acidic environments, and some conditions will better flourish in alkaline environments. So usually that is a direct relation that metabolic rates would be released in acidic would be reduced in acidic environments. That's all. Okay. So that is one thing. Okay. So then that is one important effect. And apart from this, what is the other important effect? Other important effect means there is a process called carbon sequestration. What do you mean by carbon sequestration? Carbon storage and then storage it in things and then yes, carbon sequestration means it's a process of capture of the carbon dioxide or carbon and subsequent storage of the carbon in various sinks, carbon sinks. So that process is known as carbon sequestration. So we have also understood that oceans are one of the important carbon sinks which stores the carbon. So carbon sequestration is a natural process that occurs with the oceans. So due to ocean acidification, what will happen? The process of carbon sequestration, it will hamper. Carbon sequestration, it will hamper, or we can say it impacts, or ocean acidification impacts the process of carbon sequestration. Okay.